Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today, we are going to touch base on a couple of different things. One, I've got some new information out of Gila National Forest. About a little over a year ago, a father and son reached out to me. They live in Silver City, New Mexico, and they shared some very interesting experiences, theirs and others, in that region of the Gila National Forest. And many of you may be aware of the different sightings, obviously UFO sightings up in that region, but there is a large kind of group of sightings of Bigfoot back in the day, Reptilian, Dogman, but it just has a sacred place as well with the Native Americans. There is, on top of the sightings, the cave art in Gila depicts cryptids, which is very, very interesting. So we're going to get into a little bit of information from Robert and Robert Jr. Also, I'm going to hit a little bit of the well-documented Reptilian case file that I have been sharing with you guys. I think we're at like case number 24. So before we get into all that, though, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. And yes, folks, they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into today's upload, shall we? Really quick, before we go any further, two things I want to touch on. One, I read in the comments the other day where I talk slow. Well, I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I'm not a storyteller. I share information with you guys. First and foremost, I think of myself as a researcher. In the live stream last night, I said what I want to do is, now that I'm done dealing with the family issue that had kind of really taken it out of me for 7 months, that I want to spend 50% of my time out in the woods and 50% of the time behind a desk and really deep diving into the research. I was interviewed by Sean Atwood because of the animal attacks that I had been covering and showing that none of it made sense, what the media, what the government was telling us. So I don't consider myself a storyteller. I share information. So yeah, if I talk a little slow, that's just because I want to make sure that what I'm saying is articulate, because I don't have that kind of talent, I guess. James, my good friend Dark Waters, has that talent. He is an amazing storyteller. I don't. I just want to share this amazing information that I find amazing with you guys. And I want to share experiences that people have shared with me because they know that I've had my own experience and that I am I'm open and accepting of other people's experiences. I'm not quick to judge. So with that being said, the second thing I want to say is the other day I had, you know how you get pop-ups on YouTube? 3 years ago, I had a subscriber reach out to me from Connecticut. He's an ambulance driver, paramedic. During his experience, he was riding shotgun. And I interviewed him. I shared his experience first. I interviewed him. And he specifically gave me the rights to his experience. He never shared it with anyone else. Just recently on a pop-up, there is a channel that is out there. It's got like 8,000 subscribers. And he is taking other channels, mine included, and using their experiences without permission, which is probably one of the lamest things I think I'd ever seen. On top of taking like word for word what they said. So if you do hear that ambulance experience, note that I have the interview on my channel. This channel has also taken a few stories from Vic Cundiff's channel, which shocked me because, you know, to be quite honest, Vic was at the forefront of the Dogman YouTube kind of channel and experiences. And to take from him and actually share experiences that were from his channel, word for word, verbatim, is just bizarre and nutty. It just shows how low people will go in this field to become internet famous. They don't want to do the research. They don't want to do anything on their own. They just want to copy other people, which is completely lame. I'm sorry. I just needed to address it because I actually was trying to fall asleep and it popped up on my feed and I was like, what the heck? And I'm like, wait a second. And I actually emailed the paramedic and I said, hey, did you give permission to anyone else other than, if you have, it's obviously your encounter, but you know, and he said, no, I haven't. And I said, okay. But, you know, it's just, I think that's just, it's wrong. And there's so many different things. There's so many wrong things in this community that we don't need more, you know, especially now with the advent of AI, and falsified photos, falsified video, AI generated stories. It's going to get bad and people are going to believe anything, you know? I mean, the majority of people think creepypastas are real, for God's sakes. But anyway, I just wanted to address that really quick. I really do mean what I said. 50% of the time out behind, in the woods, boots on the ground, then sitting, looking at maps, looking at different research and such, talking with other researchers. I think that's the only way that will work for me from now on. So let's get into this right now. Okay, guys. So first and foremost, I want to touch base about Robert and his son, JR, or Junior. They live in Silver City in New Mexico. JR is a avid hiker. He mountain climber, just has been going into the Gila National Forest for the majority of his teenage and adult life. around 2 years ago, he had an experience out in that region in the national forest that really changed his life forever. He had been hiking out by himself for the majority of the day, and he was probably 4 miles back, just trekking. And he had heard some strange kind of calls, these just weird growling, animalistic, either aggression or pain. And as he's walking, he realizes that he's very close to whatever is making these sounds. And he witnesses what he believes to be a dogman, just an enormous specimen of this creature, 8 feet, just huge, in a death battle with crawlers. As he's watching this, he's thinking, which way do I go? How do I get out of here? I don't want to be seen. What the hell are these things? And he was starting to, as he's watching this, he is recognizing these crawlers as hieroglyphs that are depicted in the cliff dwelling, the National Cliff Dwelling Monument. And he then watches, it is a battle to the death. The Dogman is not, going down easy. It's taking out some of these crawlers, but there's just more of them coming out of these caves, these little holes in the side of this mountain area. Eventually the Dogman succumbs to injuries and dies, and they yank its just huge body into these very small kind of openings in this mountainside area. He proceeds to get the hell out of Dodge, and he hears what he believes that to be these crawlers following him out of the trails. Luckily, he got out alive. His dad then, he had actually gotten into some trouble right after this, going up there and looking for, he was trying to get a specimen of the soil where that battle occurred. And his dad, growing up in Silver City, knew a lot of the people, knew the former sheriff and such, and got a first-hand account from the sheriff. There's an old mine out that way, and apparently 2 security guards were sitting out nighttime. They heard what they thought was either a woman or a child. They're in this little security shack, which is all windows, 4-foot wall, and then window, and then a roof. So you got an 8-foot wall, half window, half wall, and all the way around. Not a very safe place to be if there is a cryptid coming to attack you. So they kind of spot this large, hairy creature, and it looks to be holding a child. They immediately go out, they jump into their truck and take off going towards where they seen this. There's a field right across the road. It's a dirt road. It's not any kind of paved area. It's just dirt. There's a small kind of waterway, and they see this Dogman. They are armed. They do take a couple shots. They realize that that's not a child. That's some kind of strange creature They have no idea what a crawler is. They just, at this point, know that's not a human. And they obviously know that what they're seeing carrying this not a human thing is not a bear. They then hear these screeches coming out from the darkness. They turn and look behind, or they're looking straight on. They're watching what's going on. They see this Dogman turn and look behind it as well. And there's a couple of crawlers coming to the aid of this other crawler. And I believe that one did succumb to its death. I don't have the paper in front of me. I'm just going off the top of my head because I want to share the newest stuff with you. And the crawlers proceeded to attack the truck. Thankfully enough, the security guards got out of there with their lives. Now, through the next couple of months, JR ends up getting arrested. He's jailed, and he was supposed to send me some of the soil samples in hopes that there could be some blood, there could be some sort of evidence of fur, whatever. He was just going to go back up and look around. He was detained and brought to jail. His father obviously got him out of jail and such. So Memorial Day weekend, JR is just going hiking. He is not going in that area at all. Actually, he is due east of where he was by a long shot. He is going up towards Middle Fork Trail, which is off of Middle Fork Gila River. There's a visitor center right there. Just a little ways due west is the parking area for the cliff dwelling monument and such. So it is a highly trafficked area. Route 15 is right there. And he's not going. He's, not going looking for any kind of anything. He has kind of learned his lesson. He's a little apprehensive about going back to where everything occurred. But he still loves hiking. He still loves rock climbing. And so he goes to this area and he parks at this visitor center and jumps on the trail, the Middle Fork Trail. He's walking towards Middle Fork Gila River. There is a rock wall so the river runs kind of through, and it's up. It's positioned above the trail, and you'd go up this kind of narrow path. It's not a easy hike at all. It's something, your kids aren't going to do. You definitely need to have a few years of hiking experience at least. And because obviously hiking is not just walking. There is easy, moderate, and hard trails. That's just life. This would be a hard trail. There are easy and moderate trails in that area as well. But he just wanted to go up and just go past the Middle Fork Gila River. So he's up there and he finds this really nice spot where he's going to sit and kind of enjoy the day. He's got a few days off of work. This has been one of the few times that he's actually been able to get out and hike. So where he's at, the river is in front of him, and behind him and on the opposite side of the river are these kind of rock walls that go down. He's just hanging out, and he kind of sees something off in the distance, and he gets panicky really, really quick, because what he sees is it's brown and it is large. It is quadruped at this point, and it is moving at a fairly decent rate, coming towards him. But once again, it's on the opposite side of the river. He kind of sits up, stands up, and looks, because he's getting ready to head back the way he came, because in his mind, he is thinking, Dogman, this is what I saw up on the other side of the mountain. I don't want any part of this. I'm getting the hell out. Shortly thereafter, he realizes that's not a Dogman. Okay, it is a deer. All right. And it is still running full bore. Now, what he says is it hops there's some narrow parts of the river, and so it's going this way away from him. He's watching it, and it's coming, and he turns and he watches it hop across the narrower part of the river, and the wall is right here, this just kind of sheer wall. And so he thinks it's going to just keep, it's going to turn and just go straight along the river, along this side of the river. And he's busy watching the deer. The whole time, that from the second he realized that he saw something running to probably a couple of seconds after this deer cleared the narrower part of the river to where it could actually jump, it was probably like 5 feet. His attention was focused on the deer. When he kind of says, what the hell is it doing? Because it's still going in the same direction towards this face of the wall. He sees these two kind of narrow, pale crawlers. They were not running bipedal. He said that they ran like monkey-like, primate-like, not like a dog, not like what we picture a Dogman would run like, not like the deer, but primate-like, using its arms to propel itself at a very quick rate. Even though these two things are very skinny, and he can tell that they're skinny just from the distance away. But also, he thinks that because of the size difference in the deer in these creatures, because when they were running quadruped as well, they couldn't have been any bigger at the shoulder than 2.5 to 3 feet. They were not very large at all, compared to the deer. So as this deer is going, he's got a visual now, because they had just cleared that same path that deer had. And he immediately now picks up his bag and is starting to kind of backtrack a little bit, but keeping his eye on what is going on. What he sees in the next couple of seconds will just baffle him forever. The deer did not turn to continue down to follow the course of the river, of the Middle Fork Gila River. It jumped straight off the rock wall, the cliffside there, which is 25 feet down, and nearly a sheer kind of drop off. He witnesses this, and he's just like, he couldn't believe what he saw. But what he sees these two creatures do is the same thing. They just jumped. They continued to run, and just propelled themselves off the side of the ledge there. He then walks kind of back into his, would it be his left side, away from the trail that's going to get him out, to kind of see, like, did I just witness this? I'm going to look down this embankment here, not even an embankment because it's pretty much a sheer wall, and see if, the carcass of this deer is there, and what the hell are these things chasing? Did they just die too? He looks over and he sees the deer is now physically just maimed, legs broke. It's trying to get up. It's making this horrific kind of wail. And he sees these two crawler-like creatures just kind of like mauling at it, jumping on it, pulling back, jumping, pulling back. But they're doing damage each time. But they're not staying on it. So they're like kind of like this to it, just jumping and either beating it or pulling. He couldn't tell. But he could hear the bleats of this deer. And he said it was just probably one of the saddest things he has ever heard in his life. He then turned around and just took off running in a dead sprint back down the Middle Fork Trail toward the visitor center. Now, from where he had hiked is not all that far, couple miles, so less than an hour in, and an hour out, where public would be. There were some cars at the public visitor center lot. He gets to the parking lot and he's trying to catch his breath. He's breathing very deeply, not knowing, do I say anything to a park ranger? Because last time I said anything, I got my ass in a sling and I got in some big trouble. So he gets in his car and he, instead of going back to Silver City via 15, he proceeds to head up 15 towards the cliff dwellings and deeper into the Gila National Forest. The reason why he wanted to, because he wanted to see, because he knew from at least one vantage point on 15, he could at least see the ledge side that he was on. Obviously not great, but enough to see, kind of just like he wanted to do it because he kind of wanted just some reassurance of what, he knowing that he's not going to see anything. He proceeds to drive. He goes past where he can see the ledge that this deer had jumped off of. Drives past probably 10, 15 minutes down the road and turns around. And he kind of looks over again and he comes to a stop because with his naked eye, the vantage point, obviously, he still thinks possibly his mind was playing tricks on him because it looked like these two crawler things had started to scale the rock wall there, the cliff face, but were dragging the deer kind of in unison with, one on one side, one on the other. and dragging the carcass up the side of the rock wall there. He didn't know for sure. Part of him still thinks that what he saw was his mind playing tricks on him. But he is 100% positive that the Native American tribes that lived in that area, which there were roughly four to five different tribes, depending on time of, dates and stuff. Because all of the cave drawings, all the hieroglyphs in the caves were not drawn in the same years. There are some that are just thousands of years old. But he is now certain that just from what he saw 2-something years ago to now, that the Native Americans in this region did have a massive amount of run-ins with crawler-like creatures. And he kind of agrees with me on my theory that I do believe that these crawlers were created as a kind of a security force for the the reptilians that are said to live underneath Gila, underneath Mount Shasta, and all around that region. I believe that these creatures were created by the Reptilian as kind of a rogue security force, something just to keep them safe. And obviously they need to eat and they hunt, and that these two were hunting in a pack and hunted down this deer. The strangest thing that he said and that he kept saying was how they moved, how he did not see them when he initially spotted the deer. And he doesn't know if he didn't spot them because of the coloration, the sun being, shining, the water kind of glare or whatnot, or his focus on that deer. But he felt that it was strange that he didn't see them until they crossed the narrowest part of the Gila River there and then jumped off that cliffside after the deer. He's actually thinking he's talked to his dad about possibly him moving away from the area, because once again, he's a hiker and he loves the outdoors. He loves, Gila National Forest. He grew up there, but now he is just apprehensive about being there. Sorry, I had to hit mute or pause quick because there was a motorcycle going by. Being summer now, everyone in Lake George wants to ride their motorcycles at 2 a.m. I'm hoping that I did talk to his dad, Robert, and I'm hoping that him and JR will come on sometime later on in the week, just to talk a little more about how and what these guys have seen and heard. But his description of how these things ran, he said just primate-like, predatory and primate. They were on a mission. Nothing, detoured them from this hunt. They were right at the heels of this deer, and this deer was just trucking. And it was obviously so scared that instead of turning and following the river, that it decided, I'm just going to jump off the face of this freaking ledge here, or it didn't know it, but I mean, I'm pretty sure a wild animal would know, hey, there's a freaking ledge coming. I'm not going to jump off that. I'm going to turn and run. So just a really strange experience. And like he said, there's a lot of hieroglyphs. His daddy's even said it, that the amount of hieroglyphs in Gila cave dwellings is enormous. There's just in different colors, different reds, like yellows and such. And he doesn't know if that's because of their coloration or if that's the only kind of rock dust that they had. Okay, so with that being said, let's jump into the Reptilian case files. All right, guys, let's jump into some case files. Case file number 24. If you guys haven't heard up till now, last week I went through, I think it was the beginning of last week, I went through case file 1 to 23. I had shared 28 through 30 a while ago, which I'll share again. They deal with draconian, deep underground military bases. This is a lot of interesting stuff. Case file number 24 from an actual letter from John Lear. Yes, John Lear, the ace test pilot, holder of every flying medal the FAA has to offer, son of William P. Lear, inventor of the 8-track stereo and founder of the Learjet Corporation. Addressed to TL, full name on file, dated October 6th, 1990. Dear TL, many thanks for your recent very interesting letter. I showed it to Bob Lazar, of course, and he thinks we are both crazy. He does not believe that Dulce exists. Bob went through extreme brainwashing at S4, so I can understand his feelings about the time that he was brainwashed, maybe a little before. He told me that Dulce was mentioned up there once or twice in conversations that he was not part of, but that he had overheard. Since that time, he has forgotten even that part. Since I know Dulce exists, what Bob thinks does not affect me in the least. A source of mine, that is a security guard at a test site, tells me that currently there are 5 types of aliens there. The grays, the orange, the reptilians, the ones that look like the aliens in the movie The V, and the ones that look so ugly they take your breath away until you get used to looking at them. Now, I believe that the very large saucer crashed near Sedona possibly 2 years ago and is in the process of being retrieved in sections as it was too big to remove in one piece. The recent stories in Aviation Week, I believe, are attempts to buy more time, to mislead the public, and to confuse the issue. Note, Lear, this is just a little thing. Lear is here referring to article in October 1st, 1990, issue of Aviation Week and Space Technology titled Secret Advanced Vehicles Demonstrate Technologies for Future Military Use. The article referred only to the fairly well-known super advanced jets being tested in Nevada, giving the impression that these may explain all the UFO sightings in the area. Back to the letter. Again, I appreciate very much your fascinating letter and look forward to more information on Dulce. With much respect and admiration, John Lear. Now, I don't know who TL would be. Tom Castiello would be the only name starting with T that would be involved in Dulce, but he, I believe, was disappeared. He was disappeared. Not that he disappeared. He was disappeared before the 90s. So, but it's interesting because this letter was 1990 from John Lear, and talking of that, Dulce is still active. Like, I mean, I say it all the time. And that there's the grays, the orange, the reptilians, the ones that look like the aliens in the movie V, and the ones so ugly that they take your breath away. Would that be the draconians or the reptilians, the draconians? Why didn't he say draconians? Because I know John Lear knew what draconians were. But the orange, what the hell are the orange? That's a weird one. Case file number 25. A lecture given by researcher Michael Lindman on behalf of the 2020 group. 3463 State Street, Suite 264, Santa Barbara, California, 93105 in Lancaster, California, October 20th, 1991. Indeed, this whole endgame is very vulnerable, and that is why they feel it requires such secrecy. The American people wouldn't stand for this stuff if they had the information, and that's the reason why we have to get the information out and take it seriously, because it really is a matter of our money and our future that is being mortgaged here. But my friend who worked in the underground bases, who was doing sheetrock, was down on, he thinks, approximately the 30th level underground. These bases are perhaps 30 to 35 stories deep. As I say, they are not just mine shafts. These are huge, giant facilities, many city blocks in circumference, able to house tens of thousands of people. One of them, the Llano facility. We are told by the county fire department director, the county fire deputy chief, who had to go in there and look for a minor fire infraction, there is a 400 car parking lot on the first level of the Llano facility, but cars never come in and out. Those are the cars that they use inside. Okay, so a very interesting situation down there. Our guy was doing sheetrock on the 30th floor, maybe the 30th floor underground. He and his crew are working on a wall, and right over here is an elevator door. The elevator door opens, a kind of reflex action. You look, and he saw three guys, two of them human engineers that he had seen before. And between them, a guy that stood 8.5 feet tall, green skin, reptilian features, extra long arms, wearing a lab coat and holding a clipboard. I tend to believe this story because, first of all, we have other stories just like it, but more importantly, because he walked off that job that very day. And he was getting paid a great deal of money. If you're basically a sheetrock kind of guy, if you can do sheetrock in a place like that, then you get paid way more than the standard sheetrocking wages. You can count on that. So he walked off the job. His buddy on the same crew turned into an alcoholic shortly after. This is an extremely upsetting thing. You know, it wasn't like this alien jumped out and bit his head off or anything. It was just standing there for a few minutes, doors closed. He has a feeling that the elevator was malfunctioning. Otherwise, he never would have seen that except by accident. Case file number 26 from lecture from Michael Lindman. This one, 2020 group, same day, October 20th, 1991. So more from that lecture. Lots of ordinary citizens in Lancaster area are having close-up alien encounters. The first one is a woman with a number of children who in 1972 was living with her then husband in Ridgecrest, California. This woman had never read any books on UFOs or aliens and didn't have any interest in it. Indeed, today she has not read any books. The first thing she tried to do recently, when she realized that she had had alien encounters was she went out and rented Whitley Schreiber's movie Communion, the videotape that she stuck in the machine, and barely a minute into the movie, she got very anxious and nauseous and ran out of the house. That was her only attempt to inform herself on, let's say, literature or information about aliens, and yet this woman has had astonishing experiences. Following an entire waking experience where she observed a seemingly half-physical or apparitional gray near her home, which faced the open Mojave Desert, the nearest neighbor being 2 blocks away, she began having more intense experiences which she knew took place, but could not entirely understand or recall the details. She described the creature in a traditional gray configuration, as reported by so many other abductees, short and gray, with a large head and large black slanted eyes, which, in light of her ignorance of the overall UFO phenomenon, according to Lindman, only tends to substantiate her experience. As a result of this initial experience, Lindman explains she contacted a hypnotherapist, a woman who incidentally had never read a UFO book herself. The psychologist concluded, through various tests and observations, that the woman from Ridgecrest was entirely sane and sincere. Michael Lindman then continues, this woman has had lots and lots of experiences since then. Her next experience was also a waking experience, which turned into an experience that she could not remember except through regression. But the waking part of it was a clue that she needed to start exploring her hidden memories. Her husband went off on a training program. He worked for a telephone company and went off on the training program for a number of weeks sometime later, toward the end of 72. She was staying at home with her children, of course, because they were in an isolated spot. She slept in her bed with a loaded gun. And she was a very light sleeper, kind of nervous. One night she woke up because there was rustling in the room. She looked and saw she thought was a hooded black figure over her dresser. It looked as if somebody was sort of playing with her jewelry box. And she, of course, felt as if somebody had probably broken into her home. But as she was kind of thinking to herself, what can I do? What can I do? Kind of gripping her shotgun, she made a little involuntary gasp, and whoever it was turned around and walked over to her. She described this being as 4.5 feet tall, very, very dark, she said it looked like a lizard, rough skin, large yellow eyes, not the huge black almond-shaped eyes, large yellow with a slit iris, a muzzle and teeth. She said it looked like an iguana, and she said that immediately she could tell that this being was very menacing and did not like her at all. This being was dangerous and nasty, and not to be trusted. She didn't remember what happened next. All she knew was she was terrified because of this creature was literally leaning right into her face as she lied in bed. And in regression, she found out the rest of the particular story. She was floated downstairs, and she found some of the grays and physically carrying her 3 children outside to a waiting craft. She was levitated outside to that same craft. She recognized immediately that there was a black car, or a black-like lizard creature, which she stated learned actually had a tail, was actually working with the grays. She recognized immediately that this black lizard-like creature, which she later learned actually had a tail, was working with the grays. But she said they did not always get along. It was the grays' craft. She was literally listening to their telepathy. They were conversating about her as she was lying on the table in the craft waiting for the decision on what to do. She became convinced that the black one wanted to kill her, and the Greys were saying no, not on our ship. She said she saw something horrifying at that point. She said the black one just swept its hand across the chest of one of the Greys and literally tore the Grey's chest open. It fell to the ground, and she thinks it was dead. She says, I know they have green blood. I saw it bleed. Before one feels too sorry, however, the Greys, they should understand that many accounts indicate the Greys had participated in unknown numbers of animal and human mutilations in order to use the animal and human secretions as liquid protein, food source, the substance, human/animal flesh, and vital fluids. A mix in large tanks containing hydrogen peroxide to kill the bacteria. And then the Greys soak in the substance into their skin, in that they do not have operational digestive tract, and the waste is excreted back out through their exterior like a snake/lizard shedding its skin. Also, if we are to believe some of the more fantastic claims of crash retrievals, such mutilated animal and human organs have been discovered within or among the debris of crashed alien gray craft. The reptilian hierarchy seems to operate in an exactly opposite manner as the Judeo-Christian ethic. And instead of operating on faith, love, and service, the reptilian or Surian hierarchy is said to operate on fear, hatred, and competition, since both the Greys and lizard-like reptoid aliens operate on collective consciousness and are Neo-Surian in nature according to many sources, and since they have a singular agenda, which seems to be imperialistic, conquest motivated, they inevitably work together in what Michael Lindman refers to as the wedding of convenience. From one perspective, one should not see these iguanas as being much worse than the Greys. For what the green-blooded Greys lack in the way of demonical hatred or contempt for humankind, as the reptoids often seem to express, they seem to make up for their profound apathy and intellectual indifference to the good of the human race. Over and over again, abductees describe the Greys as emotionless, methodical, and seeming to show no sympathy or pity whatsoever towards human suffering or death, but merely look upon it with scientific curiosity, although hatred would seem to be the opposite of love. Of compassion. Others would argue that indifference is the antithesis of compassion, caring, or love. From this perspective, indifference to human life may be no less than evil than raging contempt for human life. Both may be the motivating factors behind all kinds of atrocities. In reference to the case referred to above, Lindman continues, her hypnotherapist said to us at this point, you know, you really ought to understand that this woman is very, very good hypnotic subject, and she actually relives her experiences in real time in the first person. She goes through all the emotions, and she has incredible recall of detail. She says, as a therapist of long standing, she has no reason to doubt that the detail that this woman brings forward is essentially accurate. It matches, of course, in many, many particularities, the kind of information that other abductees have also said. One of the other disturbing things that this woman has mentioned is that in other sessions where she was abducted, she found herself in an underground facility, which she feels quite certain was George Air Force Base, where she grew up. And in that facility underground, she saw the Greys were working side by side with the human military personnel or the real people who studied the abduction phenomenon. Collective reports indicating that the abduction phenomenon is occurring right under our noses of our own officials, that there is apparently some agreement operating here, but these abductions are going on right now, right this very second. Case file number 27, Dulce. Jefferson Souza claims that the following revelations are from personal notes and scientific diaries of a scientist who was commissioned by the United States government over a period of several years to visit all crash sites, interrogate captured life forms, and analyze all data gathered from the endeavor. Eventually, this person was discovered to have kept and maintained personal notes on his discoveries and was therefore scheduled for termination, not just job termination, which he narrowly escaped. Following 33 years of investigations, he went into hiding in 1990. Souza, actually, I do believe Souza and Tom Castiello had some sort of connection. I know that there is an unnamed person, which I believe would be Cooper, William Cooper, that went to Archuleta Mesa and met up with Jefferson Souza. Here is some of the data which is anonymous informant reportedly gathered on the reptilian type of entities. Average male height, 2.0 meters, female 1.4 meters. Average weight for the male, 200 kilos, female 100 kilo. Body temp, male ambient temperature, female ambient temperature. Pulse and respiration, 40/10, female 40/10. Blood pressure, 80/50, female 80/50. Life expectancy, 60 Earth years, female 23 Earth years. So these are the alien entities that have crashed. Cold-blooded, like all reptilians, the reptoid is found to flourish in warm tropical climate, normally artificial or large caves, with imperfect respiration, providing just enough oxygen to supply tissue and maintain the processing of food and combustion. Their temperature can be raised only a few degrees above the ambient, which suggests that heat weapons like flamethrowers and so on may provide or may prove to be very efficient and fatal to some species under the battle conditions. The reproductive system is oviparous, with egg hatching in the oviduct prior to birth. The underdeveloped reptilian, for faster activities, physical activities, cerebellus, results a slowness and simplicity of movement. The reptoid eye is composed of thousands of microscopic facets, each facet with its own independent protective eye. The eye is almost never closed entirely during the work hours. Rather, sections of the organ are shut down in conjunction with dominant light source. The reptilian survived hidden inside of Earth within big caves underground. So we all knew that. We all knew that reptilians like being underground. And that's why I believe that, once our government found out that these things were there, because everything happened, everything in human inventions of better ways of life, so like microwaves, better stoves, TV, radios. Everything happened right after World War II or right around the Roswell crash, just within that kind of area. And these reptilians made deals with our government, probably showed them their deep underground reptilian bases. And the military said, well, we need some of our own, so let's build some dumbs. But will you help us, reptilians? And we will allow you to take humans for your pleasure or your scientific needs. Anyway, some crazy stuff right there, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going. And honestly, what gives people a chance to share their experiences judgment-free. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for answers, and God bless.